everyone, welcome to another Classic Movie Monday, and today I thought it would be interesting since I really wanted to do a war movie war movie for this day because technically yesterday was Memorial Day, so I thought it would be cool to discuss a war film, and I picked this one because it's one that I'm fairly familiar with and I think a lot of people are familiar with. And one that I think is rather interesting because usually these kinds of things are usually not discussed about, especially within American history in particular, uh, war, since it was also fairly recent too. Even though it's approaching, it's past 20 years since it occurred, but regardless, let us discuss Black Hawk Down and what it's really about. And why I consider this to be a classic as far as war movies are concerned. Now, usually war movies, there's only so much that you can really convey so much as far as a war movie is concerned. Usually it's either it leans, it goes a variety of ways. You have some kind of patriotism inserted in sometimes you have the shock and horror and all of that be the centerpiece of the war movie. There's only a certain amount of avenues where you can go as far as thematically when it comes to war movies, because usually war is not a good thing. So yeah, it's just a genre that's just sort of limited as far as its ability to be what it's ultimately about. Um, but regardless, I still think war movies hold a certain significance, and I think this one was actually a really well done product, and I think is worthy of recommendation. And you usually see this film being sort of recognized, and a lot of people seem to enjoy this movie. Um, so I thought I'd discuss why I find it to be enjoyable, why I sort of agree uh, with those who feel that it is of good quality, and sort of stands out from, I guess, the crowd, you could say, of war movies. Um, Now, the interesting thing about this film is, again, like a lot of war movies, they're usually based on a true story or have some events that took place um, in real life. And this one technically takes place in 1993 during the Clinton administration. Um, and basically, what ended up happening was there was this militia that ended up forming within Somalia. And this militia was sort of responsible for causing havoc among the people living in Somalia, and also Somalia was having a lot of um, uh, food problems um, or shortages. There's obviously a lot of disease too, so it's like we usually associate Africa with, or usually films that take place in Africa usually don't have a lot of uh, I guess you could say positive uh, things going on, because usually when you turn on the news, Africa is usually the one that is probably the continent with the most chaotic um, uh, surrounding and atmosphere, because there's a lot of poverty and um, a lot of economic and also agricultural difficulties, and you could go on the list, but basically getting back to this story, um, and how the US got involved. The US decided to sort of do a raid against this militia because, or like, I guess, instigate their instigate the U.S. military into Somalia, and I guess you could say sort of conduct a raid against this militia, because they were very brutal and very violent, and we thought that we could come in and help. That was our sort of initial intention, because we also provided, aid to the people who were having difficulty, and we also wanted to basically take out the leaders of this militia in particular, since they were causing so many problems, and sort of instigating their power in very cruel ways. So, and basically the entire film, and again, this might deter or might get people invested in this film, and one particular reason why I like this film a lot, actually, is that unlike a lot of other war films that do tend to go for more of the character route, where you'll have or they'll kind of balance out the plot and characters, you feel like there's some focus on one particular person or a small group niche of people, for example, Saving Private Ryan and such. This movie is primarily plot driven. It is not designed to be a character piece. It is not designed to focus on one particular soldier focus on one soldier and one particular group of soldiers, although there are a lot of soldiers that are within this film. It doesn't try to really hone in on one of them specifically. They're just kind of just there to move the plot forward. But there is a certain extent to where character does come out of some of them. But they're definitely not the centerpiece of this war film. Even though they play a significant role, they are not. Their personality, their backstory, all of that, which is usually what a lot of the times war films like to focus on, is not present in this movie, because it is primarily plot driven. But the two characters that I think end up getting the most, I guess you could say, attention, although the attention is limited in certain respects. It's Josh Hartnett's character, who plays a young up-and-coming general named Matt, and Sam Shepard's character named William, who is a high-ranking general, and he's like the head honcho guy of the whole entire operation that they're conducting in Somalia. So he's one of the top guys, and Josh Hartnett's character Matt is like the up and coming, and you do feel the pressure that he is under to try to make sure everybody kind of gets out alive and whatnot, and you really do see Sam Shepard's character really trying hard not to lose it, considering the fact that this raid is very stressful. They really emphasize the stakes. There is a lot of tension in the air, and that I think really works well. And I don't think all war films have to be really character based or have to have these really in-depth, blown away by characters, or give them really a ton of personality or focus. But the focus that they do give to some of them, I think, has weight. But I think a lot of that comes through the acting and also the atmosphere. What I think this film hones in and does a really good job of is setting everything up as to where these soldiers are, what their mission is, what are the stakes involved, who are they after, that whole atmosphere, the whole tension buildup to the final sort of mission that they end up taking to try and, take out these militia try to take out the leaders in particular of the militia. That's really their objective, even though that gets a little bit more difficult and a lot more chaos ends up happening. The whole tension, the whole build up to all of that is, I think, just so well done and is so well paced as far as a war film is concerned, that I almost don't really so much care as far as to one particular character or another, so much as I care of how the mission ends up being accomplished, like what ends up resulting, the whole experience is what this film is trying to bring to the table. It's not trying to bring in character experience. It's trying to immerse you into that experience. You are experiencing that whole mission, you as a viewer, and not trying to put another character as the focus. And I think that's just something that's really unique. You don't see that in a lot of war films. A lot of war films, for example, Patton, it was all about his character. In Saving Private Ryan, it's all about Matt Damon's character and Tom Hanks's character, and that kind of group and niche of characters and their struggle. And in Thin Red Line, it's sort of a similar thing. Here it is, the focus is plot, the focus is tension, the focus is immersing you into the horrible experience, but at the same time making you think about the things that these soldiers went through. And the interesting thing too about this kind of a story is it's not like they're in a war. It's not like we're, it's not like the Vietnam War or the Civil War or the World War I or World War II, where there is a clearly long established time period of which we were there. Here it's just one particular mission, one particular place. The soldiers sort of going in and out, and that's it. And that is something that usually also you don't really see within war films. Usually you think, hey, I mean, if we're in war, then that's when soldiers go out. When really sometimes it's a little bit, especially within coming into the 21st century, it's a little bit more complicated than that because, it's, a lot of things are just declared as conflicts or just one-time missions. And this was supposed to be sort of like a one-time mission. It wasn't like a war. They just were sent there for a specific mission, and that's it. Unlike being sent to war to fight an enemy for an extended period of time until the enemy was defeated. So that's another distinction I think that's important to make, because again, this is why this film probably is more generated towards plot, because it's focusing more on the experience, because you can't really focus on all of these characters through the amount of time they actually were there, because they really weren't there for all that long. I mean, it wasn't like they were there for months and months and months on end. So that's, I think, another important thing to understand. Also, this film, as far as being anti-war or pro-war, I don't think, again, it's not really trying to send either or message. I mean, obviously, I think we all understand as human beings that war is horrible and we should try to avoid war as much as possible. But on the one hand, you do see sort of the care that the soldiers have for each other, and you see that as sort of a sign of character, and valor. And then on the one hand, you see how the atmosphere, it's just so chaotic and so it's just so horrible. The whole, you know, uh, mission that they wanted to accomplish ended up creating so much havoc and destruction, um, that you really do see on the one hand, the soldiers are just there to just do their job, and then on the other hand, you see the kinds of horrors and the complications that end up resulting from a mission like this one. So, and some people, again, the whole why I'm here thing kind of comes up, but again, it's not the primary focus, unlike a lot of other war films who do try to focus in on that and be like, why am I here? What is my purpose in being here? There's no point in me being here. We shouldn't be killing each other and blah blah blah. But here it's treated as, that these militiamen were really ruthless, and that the Americans were just trying to do some good, but sometimes when you try to do good, sometimes it turns out a lot more chaotic and complicated than you expected, which they do showcase within the film on how they clearly have a set out mission, and they're very organized, and then suddenly chaos breaks loose as a result, and Black Hawk Down, so to speak. And in case anybody wants to know what Black Hawk Down means, it basically means the choppers. Some of the choppers end up going down, hence Black Hawk Down. And I guess they're black. Well, yeah, technically they're black colored, so that makes sense. But that's really the heart of the film. It's trying to establish atmosphere. It's trying to immerse you in the experience. And I think that's why a lot of people got invested into this film, because it was about the war, the conflict. It wasn't about trying to establish some kind of character, study. For example, American Sniper does this. Patton does that. Here it is primarily a war film in the sense of showing you the conflict, showing you the events, what ended up happening, what ended up resulting, and that's really the end of it. And oftentimes we forget about these kinds of conflicts because we don't, they're not as televised, they're not as talked about. But those kinds of missions end up happening, and they do end up leaving sort of an impact in some way, shape, or form. So I think that's really at the heart of this film, is trying to bring out something that usually is not talked about when it comes to U.S. military history. I mean, usually you discuss real actual wars. You don't really discuss conflicts like this that are just kind of just designed to be these one-time go in, do a mission, and leave. And that's really the part of this film that makes it, I think, different. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But it's definitely an interesting film, and I think a very different film than what we would come to expect from a war film. And I think as far as war films go, I think this is definitely one of the more memorable ones, the ones that engaged me a lot. I mean, I think you can still have characters that are not as in depth and still get invested into a story. I think the visuals within this film and having it try to be about the experience really enhanced that for me. But I'm sure there's people who have different opinions on this, but I personally enjoyed it for a film as what it is trying to do. But yeah, I think that's really ultimately all I can say about this particular film. But if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.